Jesus taught us to tithe. Did you know that? Some people are completely shocked that Jesus actually dealt with the subject of tithing, and he affirmed that we need to tithe. Well, at the same time, we should be practicing even more important things than tithing. Listen to this teaching in Matthew 23:23. Jesus speaking. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You give a tenth of your spices, mint, dill, and cumin, but you have neglected the more important matters of the law, justice, mercy, and faithfulness. You should have practiced the latter without neglecting the former. He said you should be practicing justice, mercy, and faithfulness, but that's not an excuse to neglect tithing. He's saying, I'm not against tithing. Do tithing. But don't forget there are more important moral matters that the law teaches, and that's justice, mercy, and faithfulness. So here Jesus is telling us we should not neglect tithing. So if Jesus said it, who is anyone to tell you different? Are you going to believe Pastor Peter Pan or Jesus? Reverend Reckless or Jesus? Dr. Doolittle or Jesus? All these self-appointed ministers trying to tell you that you should listen to them and not to our Lord Jesus, who told us to tithe. Now, he doesn't say tithing is more important than justice, mercy, and faithfulness, but he does say don't neglect it. Since he said not to neglect it, then we should not neglect it. Now, I've had people say, well, no, that's under the old covenant. We're exempt. That's not for us, Matthew 23:23. Really? It's not for us? So that means you're exempt from justice and mercy and faithfulness. So you don't have to be just anymore. You could be unjust. You don't have to be merciful. You could be mean and judgmental. You don't have to be faithful anymore. You can be disloyal. Is that what you're saying? Well, no. That part is for us, but not the tithe part. Wait a minute. That means you're cutting up Matthew 23:23, and you're deciding which part of Matthew 23:23 you will obey and which part you will disobey. See, so people are hypocritical when they say, this is not for us, because I haven't heard one minister say that we're exempt from justice, mercy, and faithfulness. So if we're not neglect from the latter, then we're not neglect from the former. Now, people will say, but Bishop, Jesus' teaching was under the law, and those teachings are not for us today. Wrong. In fact, this argument that Jesus preached the law of Moses and therefore it's passed away is sacrilegious, and it's heresy. You say, what do you mean? You see, people who say that certain parts of Jesus' teachings are passed away, you're treating Jesus as a teacher of the law, a Pharisee. In other words, you're stripping him of his divinity. You see, Jesus is not a scribe or a Pharisee or a teacher of the law, where his teachings can pass away, or his teachings is for that person, but not for all people. No, friend. Everything Jesus said, because he is the divine Son of God, is for all people at all times. That's why Jesus said, heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. When he said that, he is saying he's God. And since he's God, his teachings can never be nullified. So Jesus' teachings in the Gospels are all for us. Now somebody says, but Bishop, he was talking to the Pharisees and teachers of the law, not to us. Who cares? It doesn't matter if he's given a message to a teacher of the law. It's still for us. If that's your argument, then you don't need to be born again. Because Jesus told Nicodemus, a Pharisee, you must be born again. Well, you could argue, well, he said that to a Pharisee, so we don't have to be born again. Do you see how ridiculous that is? It doesn't matter who Jesus is speaking to. It's for us. The parable of the Good Samaritan was given to the scribes and the Pharisees. Does that mean we're exempt from loving our neighbor as ourselves? Because it was a parable given not to us, but to the Pharisees? Do you see the ridiculousness of this argument? How about Matthew chapter 19, when Jesus teaches about divorce and remarriage? That teaching was given only to the Pharisees. They're debating with Jesus. The disciples are not part of the debate or discussion. But after the debate is over, what do his disciples do? They don't say, Lord, I'm sure glad you were just talking to them and not to us. Oh, no. The opposite. They said, Lord, if that's a situation between a husband and wife, it's better for us not to marry. And Jesus said, not everyone can receive this word, but only those who it has been given. Do you see what the disciples did? They didn't look at Jesus' discussion with Pharisees and exempt themselves from it. No, they realized whatever he said to them, he says to all. So this argument that Jesus was speaking only to Pharisees, therefore we are exempt, we're exempt from tithing because it's just to Pharisees. Will he also, does that mean you're exempt from faithfulness, justice, and mercy? Well, no. Don't you get it? These people who are telling you that you don't have to obey Jesus, they are least in the kingdom of heaven because they're telling you to break the Lord's commandments. But no one has that right to do it. So Jesus affirmed tithing. We should be obeying him and not listening to anyone else. And people who are arguing this, they have a heart problem because Jesus said here, beware of all kinds of greed. It's about greed. And yet in the end, don't you get it? If we tithe, God will bless us. He'll open the windows of heaven. He'll pour out blessing. If you sow generously, you will reap generously. Jesus said, give and it shall be given back to us. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together and running over. Don't you get it? Tithing is a big blessing to the person who does it. And why do you want to be robbed of being blessed by God? Tithe to your church. Be a blessing wherever you go. And quit listening to these do-nothing preachers who are rebellious against our Lord's teaching and follow Jesus instead. If you've been enjoying my teaching on social media, why don't you visit my webpage? And you could read a lot of articles that I've written, Bible questions that I've answered, and you can connect with our ministry and find out how you can give and support our ministry.